Welcome to 5 Minute Bible, your daily guide for your daily reading. Today's March the 16th, and we'll be looking at Deuteronomy 14 through 16. Now today we continue Moses' instruction to Israel as the nation stands on the edge of the promised land. Deuteronomy 14 through 16 moves into practical laws that will shape Israel's daily life once they settle in the land. And these chapters address things like holiness and generosity and worship, and showing how God's people are meant to live as a distinct people under his rule and authority among the nations. Now, Deuteronomy 14 in that way begins with laws about clean and unclean foods. And these regulations were meant to distinguish Israel from the surrounding nations and to reinforce the idea that they were a people who were set apart for God. And Moses even reminds them that their identity is rooted in belonging to the Lord and not to themselves. Then the chapter also addresses the tithe. Israel is commanded to give a portion of their produce and their livestock as an act of worship and gratitude to Yahweh. The tithe supports the Levites who serve in the sanctuary, and it also provides for the poor and the widow and the orphan and the foreigner. In other words, worship of God is always meant to produce generosity towards other people. Then in Deuteronomy 15, we're introduced to the year of release. Every 7 years, debts were to be canceled, allowing the poor to begin all over again. And Moses calls the people to open their hands in generosity rather than hardening their hearts towards those in need. Then, in Deuteronomy 16, we conclude with the instructions for the three major annual feasts: the Passover, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. And these celebrations were designed to keep Israel constantly remembering what God had done for them in their deliverance out of Egypt, all the way until his ongoing provision in the land. Now, as you read today, I want you to ask the following question. What does it look like when a nation truly belongs to God? And Deuteronomy 14 through 16 shows how faithfulness to God touches every part of national life, and that includes things like food and money and justice and worship. And the central pattern in these passages is that holiness is expressed through daily living. God doesn't limit his authority to the sanctuary or to the moments of worship. He shapes the rhythms of ordinary life. What Israel eats and how they handle money and how they treat the poor and how they celebrate all that God has done as an expression of gratitude and covenant faithfulness. All of this intersects with their daily life just like it intersects with ours today, because faithfulness to God is not confined to religious ceremonies. It reaches into every decision we make, not just on Sunday, but on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday as well. It affects how we use our resources and our finances, how we treat one another, and how we remember God's grace in our life. Deuteronomy 14 through 16 also points us forward to Jesus, because the Passover festival especially foreshadows the greater redemption that's going to be accomplished through Christ. Just as Israel remembered the Lamb whose blood spared them in Egypt, the New Testament reveals Jesus as the true Passover Lamb who takes away the sins of his people. The laws about generosity and release also anticipate the deeper freedom that's going to be found in the gospel. Christ proclaims liberty to the captives and forgiveness of all of the spiritual debts that humanity could never repay on their own. And instead of every 7 years, he gives us freedom forever. Through him, the mercy and provision that was hinted at in Israel's law became a global reality as his kingdom continues to spread all across the earth. As you read Deuteronomy 14 through 16 today, pay very close attention to how Moses connects obedience with remembrance. Israel's life is meant to be shaped by gratitude for what God has already done. And tomorrow, we're going to see how Moses will continue outlining the leadership and justice structures that's going to guide his people once they enter into the land. And with that, read your Bible carefully, devotionally, and joyfully, and may the Lord use his word to sanctify you completely, and we will continue our journey tomorrow. God bless you.